Zeeks4471 adjusted her crystalline breathing apparatus as she floated through the corridors of the Galactic Academy. The massive space station orbited the neutral moon of Concordia, serving as the premier educational institution for the galaxy's most promising young minds. Students from dozens of species mingled in the hallways, their various forms of locomotion creating a symphony of clicks, whirs, and gentle whooshes. Today marked the beginning of something unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, students from the infamous Deathworld Earth would be joining their classes. The news had spread like wildfire through the Academy's social networks, generating equal parts excitement and terror among the student body. "Did you hear they have to wear special containment suits?" whispered Kethara, a tall insectoid from the hive worlds, her compound eyes gleaming with nervous anticipation. "Apparently their planet is so violent that they've evolved into living weapons." Zeeks4471's tentacles rippled with skepticism, but she couldn't deny her own curiosity. Earth had been classified as a class death world by the Galactic Survey Corps 50 years ago. The stories were legendary. A planet where the very air was poisonous to most species, where massive predators roamed freely, and where the dominant species had somehow thrived in conditions that would kill most galactic citizens within minutes. The Terrans, as they called themselves, had only made contact with the galactic community 5 years ago. Their first diplomatic vessel had caused quite a stir when it arrived at the Galactic Council station. The ship itself was a marvel of brutal efficiency, armed to the teeth and built like a fortress. When the crew emerged, they moved with a predatory grace that made even the most seasoned security forces nervous. "There they are," breathed John, a gelatinous being from the water worlds. His translucent form quivered as he pointed down the corridor. 3 figures walked toward them, and Zeeks4471's optical sensors immediately began cataloging the differences. They were bipedal, roughly humanoid in shape, but there was something unsettling about their movement. They didn't glide or float like most civilized species. Instead, they moved with purpose, their feet striking the deck plating with deliberate force. Their scanning patterns were constant, their heads turning to assess potential threats and escape routes. The first human was tall and lean, with dark skin and close-cropped hair. His eyes, Zeeks4471 noticed with fascination, were constantly moving, taking in everything around him with an intensity that made her nervous. The second was shorter but broader, with pale skin marked by what appeared to be old scars. The third was somewhere in between, with medium brown skin and hair that defied the neat grooming standards of most galactic species. "Welcome to Galactic Academy," announced Director Veltar, the station's coordinator of student affairs. The elderly Zentoran's forearms spread in a gesture of welcome, though Zeeks4471 noticed he maintained a respectful distance. "You must be our exchange students from Earth. I am Director Veltar. Thank you for having us," replied the tall human, his voice carrying an odd resonance that made Zeeks4471's crystalline structure vibrate slightly. "I'm Marcus Chen, this is Sarah Rodriguez, and this is James Okafor. We're honored to be here." "Excellent. Excellent." Veltar's voice carried the slightly strained tone of someone trying very hard to appear relaxed. "Your dormitory assignments have been prepared in the High Security Wing, as per your species' special requirements." "High Security Wing?" Sarah's eyebrows rose, an expression that seemed to convey surprise among humans. "Is there something we should know about?" An awkward pause filled the air. Veltar's manipulator appendages twitched nervously. "Well, given your homeworld's unique characteristics, we thought it best to ensure your safety and the safety of other students. The environmental controls in that section can be adjusted for your specific atmospheric requirements." James tilted his head slightly, another gesture Zeeks4471 found strangely predatory. "Our atmospheric requirements are pretty standard: oxygen-nitrogen mix, standard pressure and temperature ranges. We checked the Academy's environmental specs before we came. Everything looked compatible." "Yes, well," Veltar's voice trailed off. "Perhaps we should discuss this in my office. Your fellow students, I'm sure, are eager to meet you, but there are some protocols we should review first." Zeeks4471 watched the exchange with growing fascination. The humans seemed genuinely puzzled by the special treatment, not arrogant or threatening as the stories suggested. If anything, they appeared to be making an effort to appear non-threatening, though their natural alertness never wavered. As the group moved toward the director's office, Zeke's 4471 found herself following at a discreet distance. Her species, the Trilaxians, were natural observers, and something about this situation didn't align with the stories she'd heard about the terrifying Deathworld humans. The Academy's main corridor was designed to accommodate dozens of different species, with multiple levels and movement options. Humans, she observed, seemed to naturally gravitate toward the middle level, moving in straight lines with minimal wasted motion. They didn't utilize the aerial pathways or the magnetic levitation strips that most species preferred. Instead, they walked with a rhythm that suggested endurance over efficiency. "Did you see how they move?" whispered another student behind her. "Like they're hunting something." But Zeke's 4471 wasn't so sure. As she watched more carefully, she began to notice something different. Yes, they moved with purpose and alertness, but there was something else. When a small Pixarian student accidentally dropped their datapad, Marcus immediately bent down to retrieve it, his movements gentle and careful. When Sarah noticed another student struggling with a heavy atmospheric tank, she offered to help without being asked. These didn't seem like the actions of a species evolved for pure aggression. In the director's office, she positioned herself near a ventilation grating where she could observe without being noticed. The conversation that followed would change everything she thought she knew about humans and their notorious Deathworld. "Now then," Director Veltar began, settling his bulky form into a specially designed chair. "I hope you understand that your presence here is something of an experiment. We've never had students from such a challenging environment before." "Challenging how?" Marcus asked, his tone polite but with an edge that suggested growing confusion. Veltar activated a holographic display showing Earth's classification file. "Well, Class XII Deathworld designation speaks for itself. Gravity nearly twice standard. Atmospheric pressure variations that would crush most species, extreme temperature fluctuations, and, of course, the biological hazards." "Biological hazards?" Sarah leaned forward, her expression sharpening. "The predatory fauna, the toxic plant life, the microscopic organisms that can apparently dissolve organic matter." Veltar's voice carried the tone of someone reciting from a textbook. "Your species' adaptation to such an environment has, naturally, resulted in certain, enhanced capabilities." James exchanged a look with his companions, and Zix 4471 caught something that made her optical sensors focus more intently. It wasn't aggression or pride in his expression, it was confusion, tinged with what appeared to be embarrassment. "Director Veltar," James said slowly, "I think there might be some misunderstandings in your data. Earth isn't. I mean, yes, we have predators and some environmental challenges, but it's not the nightmare world your files seem to describe." "Nonsense." Veltar waved a dismissive appendage. "The Galactic Survey Corps is very thorough. They documented everything. The massive carnivores that hunt in coordinated packs, the plants that can kill with a touch, the weather systems that can level entire cities. Well," Marcus said, carefully, "we do have wolves, and some plants are poisonous, and yes, we get hurricanes and tornadoes, but—" "Exactly." Veltar's voice rose with conviction. "Atmospheric disturbances capable of generating wind speeds that would tear apart most galactic infrastructure. And you speak of them so casually, proving how your species has adapted to constant mortal peril." Sarah's mouth twitched in what Zix 4471 was beginning to recognize as a suppressed smile. "Director, we think there might be some context missing from your reports. Could we see the original survey data?" What appeared on the holographic display made everything suddenly crystal clear to Zix 4471. The Galactic Survey Corps report on Earth was comprehensive, detailed, and completely lacking in any sense of scale or context. The report described massive atmospheric disturbances capable of generating sustained wind velocities exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. It documented apex predators weighing up to 300 kilograms with reinforced skeletal structures and retractable cutting implements. It cataloged sessile organisms capable of producing neurotoxic compounds with 100% lethality rates in standard galactic physiology. What it failed to mention was how rare Category 5 hurricanes actually were, or that the apex predators were mostly small tigers and big cats that generally avoided humans. or that the deadly plants were things like poison ivy and mushrooms that most humans knew to avoid. "This is fascinating," Marcus said, studying the data with the air of someone trying not to laugh. "Your survey team was very thorough, but I think they may have misunderstood some things about life on Earth." "Misunderstood?" Veltar's tone suggested he found this possibility unlikely. "Well," Sarah said diplomatically, "for instance, this entry about coordinated pack hunters with enhanced olfactory capabilities and reinforced dental structures capable of crushing bone. That's describing wolves. But wolves generally avoid human contact. Most humans never see a wild wolf in their entire lives. And this part about aerial predators with enhanced visual acuity and razor-sharp talons capable of striking from extreme heights," James added. "Those are eagles and hawks. Beautiful birds, really. Some humans even keep them as hunting partners." Zeke's 4471's worldview shifted dramatically as she listened to the humans calmly explain their planet's ecology. The survey team hadn't been wrong about the facts, but they'd completely missed the context. They'd documented everything that could theoretically be dangerous without understanding the statistical reality of life on Earth. "But surely," Veltar persisted, "your species' renowned combat capabilities and enhanced physical resilience are products of this harsh environment." The three humans exchanged another look, and this time Zeke's 4471 was certain she detected embarrassment. "Director," Marcus said slowly, "humans aren't really enhanced compared to galactic standard. We're just standard human. Our planet shaped us, sure, but not in the way your reports suggest. The survey data indicates your species possesses remarkable endurance capabilities, enhanced healing factors, and tolerance for environmental extremes that would prove fatal to most galactic citizens." Veltar read from his display. "We can jog for a while. We heal from cuts and bruises, and we can survive in different climates," Sarah said with growing amusement. "These aren't superpowers. They're just normal human things." But as Zeke's 4471 processed this information, she began to understand something that the humans themselves seemed oblivious to. Their normal was extraordinary by galactic standards. Most species in the galaxy had evolved on worlds with stable climates, predictable weather patterns, and ecosystems where the dominant intelligent life had long since eliminated or domesticated any potential threats. Humans came from a world where nature itself was unpredictable and potentially dangerous, where survival required constant adaptation and resilience. What they considered unremarkable baseline capabilities were indeed remarkable by galactic standards. The conversation continued for another hour, with the humans patiently explaining Earth's ecology, while Director Veltar struggled to reconcile their casual descriptions with the terrifying official reports. Zeke's 4471 listened with growing fascination as a picture emerged of a species that had achieved galactic civilization, not through genetic enhancement or technological dependency, but through simple, dogged persistence and adaptability. As the meeting concluded and the humans were finally shown to their dormitories, Zeke's 4471 made a decision. She was going to get to know these Earth students better, not because she feared them or wanted to study them like dangerous specimens, but because she suspected there was much more to humanity than anyone in the galaxy truly understood. The truth about Earth's Deathworld reputation was about to become far more interesting than anyone had imagined. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at Galactic Academy, and Zeke's 4471 had managed to become something of an unofficial observer of their daily activities. What she discovered challenged every assumption the galactic community held about the mysterious Deathworld species. It started during their first shared meal in the Academy cafeteria. The dining hall accommodated dozens of species with specialized feeding stations, atmospheric controls, and carefully regulated nutritional dispensers. When the humans approached the food service area, half the cafeteria fell silent in anticipation. "What do they eat?" whispered Kethara, her compound eyes fixed on Marcus as he examined the various food options. "Surely they require live prey or raw flesh." Zeke's 4471 watched with fascination as Marcus selected what appeared to be a simple salad, some kind of grain dish, and a fruit that resembled earth apples. Sarah chose a pasta-like meal with synthetic protein, while James opted for something that looked suspiciously like a vegetarian stir-fry. "That's it?" John's gelatinous form rippled with confusion. "Where are the massive portions of animal protein? The raw meats?" the exotic nutrients required to maintain their enhanced physiology. The reality was far more mundane. The humans ate normal portions of normal food, chatted quietly among themselves, and cleaned up after themselves with the same casual efficiency they brought to everything else. They weren't consuming vast quantities of energy-rich foods like the theoretical model suggested they should need. But it was during their first physical education class that the real revelations began. Instructor Velchris had designed what he considered a gentle introduction to academy fitness standards, carefully calibrated to avoid overtaxing the humans' supposedly hyperactive, combat-adapted physiology. The course included light gravitational resistance training, basic coordination exercises, and a short endurance assessment. "Now, honored Earth students," Velchris announced, his 6 legs clicking nervously against the gymnasium floor. "Please don't feel obligated to demonstrate your full capabilities. We're aware of your species' enhanced physical performance, and we wouldn't want any incidents." Marcus looked puzzled. "Enhanced physical performance? The survey reports document your species' remarkable endurance capabilities, enhanced strength-to-mass ratios, and superior hand-eye coordination," Velchris explained, consulting his datapad. "We've prepared modified equipment to prevent damage to Academy property." What followed was perhaps the most anticlimactic demonstration of superior physical capabilities in galactic history. The humans performed exactly as well as their physiology suggested they should. Marcus completed the coordination course efficiently but not spectacularly. Sarah's endurance run was steady and persistent, but she was clearly working hard by the end. James's strength assessment showed he was strong for his size, but nothing beyond what basic biomechanical analysis would predict. "Is that it?" Velchris asked, his mandibles twitching with confusion. "Surely you're holding back?" "Holding back from what?" Sarah asked, still breathing hard from her run. "That was a good workout. Challenging but fair." Zeke's 4471 began to understand something profound. The humans weren't superhuman by their own standards because they had nothing else to compare themselves to. Every human had grown up on Earth, surrounded by other humans, developing in Earth's environment. To them, their capabilities were completely normal, but by galactic standards, they were remarkable in ways they couldn't even perceive. During the strength assessment, James had lifted weights that would challenge most galactic species, but he'd done so with the casual air of someone performing a routine task. When Sarah completed her endurance run, she'd maintained a pace that would qualify as a sprint for most Academy students, but she'd treated it like a light jog. Most tellingly, when Marcus navigated the coordination course, he'd demonstrated reaction times and spatial awareness that rated in the 99th percentile of galactic averages, but he'd seemed genuinely confused when Velchris suggested he was being modest about his abilities. "You really don't know, do you?" Zix 4471 found herself asking after the class ended. She'd finally worked up the courage to approach the humans directly. "Know what?" Marcus asked, toweling off sweat with the same unconscious efficiency that seemed to characterize all human movement. "How remarkable you are by galactic standards," she said simply. The conversation that followed took place in one of the Academy's observation lounges, with the magnificent vista of Concordia's rings providing a backdrop for Zeke's 4471's growing understanding of humanity's unique place in the galaxy. "See? That's the thing we've been trying to figure out since we got here," Sarah said, settling into a chair designed for humanoid physiology. "Everyone keeps talking about how dangerous and enhanced we are, but we feel completely normal. Because you are normal." Zeke's 4471's tentacles rippled with excitement as the pieces fell into place. "Normal, for humans, but humans are extraordinary by galactic standards, and you have no frame of reference to understand that." "How so?" James asked, leaning forward with genuine curiosity. Zix 4471 activated her personal datapad and began pulling up comparative statistics. Take endurance, for example. The average galactic citizen can maintain moderate physical activity for approximately 0.3 standard time units before requiring rest. Sarah just ran continuously for 1.2 standard time units and could have continued. "That's just basic cardiovascular fitness," Sarah protested. "Any human who runs regularly can do that." "Any human, yes. But humans are the only known species where any individual can develop such capabilities through simple training. Most galactic species have fixed physical limitations that can't be improved significantly through exercise. Marcus's eyes widened as the implications sank in. You mean other species can't just get stronger by working out? Limited improvement only, Zix 4471 confirmed. My species, for instance, can enhance our cognitive processing through practice. But our physical capabilities are essentially fixed from maturity. The idea that you can literally rebuild your body through repeated stress and recovery is uniquely human. She pulled up more data, her excitement growing. And your hand-eye coordination. During that exercise, Marcus, you demonstrated reflex integration that our best pilots achieve only after years of neural enhancement training. But you learned to catch and throw objects as a child, didn't you? Well, yeah. Most kids learn to play catch. Most human kids. Because your planet required it. Zix 4471's understanding crystallized as she spoke. Your world didn't make you into warriors or super soldiers. It made you into the most adaptable, resilient, trainable species the galaxy has ever encountered. The humans exchanged looks as this perspective shift settled in. So when the survey team documented our world, James said slowly, they saw all the challenges and dangers, but they didn't understand that we'd developed the ability to meet and overcome those challenges through learning and adaptation. Exactly. They cataloged the threats without understanding that humans had become virtually unthreatenable through sheer adaptability. This revelation led to a series of informal experiments over the following weeks that would become legendary among Academy students. Word had spread about ZX4471's research, and soon a small group of students from various species were working together to understand the true scope of human capabilities. The first test involved problem-solving under pressure. They created a scenario where participants had to navigate a maze while dealing with various distractions and obstacles. The humans didn't solve the problems faster than other species, but they displayed something remarkable. They got better at it with each attempt, and they seemed to actively enjoy the increasing difficulty. This is fascinating, announced Tvek, a crystalline scholar from the Geometric Collective. Most species optimize for a specific type of challenge and become less effective when conditions change. Humans seem to optimize for optimization itself. The second test examined learning acquisition. They taught volunteers from different species a new skill. In this case, a complex strategy game popular among Academy students. The humans' initial performance was average, but their improvement curve was extraordinary. It's like they're designed to be students, observed Dr. Yilnara, one of the Academy's xenobiology instructors who had joined their informal research group, not just students of academics, but students of existence itself. The third test was the most revealing. They presented various species with survival scenarios, asking them to develop solutions using only basic materials. The results illustrated the fundamental difference between humans and the rest of galactic civilization. Most species approached the challenges by trying to recreate the technological solutions they were familiar with. When that wasn't possible, they struggled to adapt. Humans, by contrast, immediately began experimenting with the available materials, testing combinations, and building iteratively on partial successes. Look at this, Zeeks4471 said, reviewing recordings of Sarah working through a shelter-building exercise. She's not trying to build the perfect shelter from the beginning. She's building a basic shelter, then identifying its weaknesses, then improving it again. It's like she expects to be wrong initially, and has built getting it wrong into her process. That's actually how humans do most things, Marcus admitted, watching the recording with new appreciation for something he'd always taken for granted. We call it trial and error, but really it's more like trial and learning and better trial. James nodded thoughtfully. We grow up expecting to fail at new things until we figure them out. Is that not normal? Not even close to normal, Doctor, Yilnara said with growing excitement. Most species are risk-averse when it comes to failure. We're trained from development to avoid mistakes because mistakes can be costly or dangerous. But humans seem to have weaponized failure as a learning tool. This insight led to perhaps the most profound revelation of all. Humans hadn't evolved to be physically superior or naturally aggressive. They'd evolved to be the galaxy's most effective learning machines, shaped by a world that demanded constant adaptation and rewarded those who could turn challenges into opportunities for growth. As news of these discoveries spread through the Academy, the perception of the human students began to shift dramatically. They were no longer seen as dangerous predators from a hostile world. but as representatives of something far more remarkable, a species that had turned adversity itself into their greatest strength. But the full implications of this discovery were yet to be revealed, and the final test would come sooner than anyone expected. The crisis began during what should have been a routine academy exercise. The Galactic Emergency Response Simulation was an annual event designed to test student readiness for various crisis scenarios. This year's simulation involved a catastrophic system failure on a deep space research station, requiring immediate evacuation and resource management under extreme pressure. Director Veltar had initially planned to excuse the human students from the exercise, concerned that their enhanced combat reflexes might give them an unfair advantage or, worse, lead to aggressive responses that could endanger other participants. However, after weeks of observing their remarkably unremarkable behavior, he'd reluctantly agreed to include them. The simulation began at 0800 station time, when emergency alarms suddenly blared throughout the academy. Students were divided into mixed species teams and given fragmented information about a disaster on remote research station Kepler 442b. The scenario was designed to be solvable but challenging, requiring coordination, resource allocation, and decision-making under pressure. Zix 4471 found herself assigned to Team 7, along with Marcus, Kethara, John, and 2 other students from species she barely recognized. As the simulation commenced, she watched with fascination as the team dynamics immediately revealed something extraordinary about human behavior. "Okay, let's assess what we know," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the blaring alarms and flashing emergency lights. "The research station lost power 30 minutes ago. They have approximately 6 hours of emergency life support remaining, and there are 47 beings on board representing 12 different species. The nearest rescue vessels are 8 hours away," added Kethara, her compound eyes scanning multiple data streams simultaneously. "Even if we dispatched immediately, they'd arrive too late." John's gelatinous form rippled with distress. "Then the scenario is impossible. We cannot save them." This was where Zeke's 4471 expected human aggression or dominance to manifest. Instead, Marcus did something unexpected. "John's right that a conventional rescue won't work," he said thoughtfully. "So let's think unconventionally. What resources do they have on the station? What could they improvise?" And there it was. Humans didn't approach impossible problems by accepting they were impossible. They approached them by redefining the parameters. Over the next 4 hours, as teams throughout the academy struggled with the scenario, Team 7 demonstrated something that would fundamentally change galactic understanding of human capabilities. They didn't solve the problem through superior physical abilities or enhanced technology. They solved it through something far more powerful: adaptive thinking. "Look," Marcus explained, sketching diagrams on their shared workspace. "The station's fusion reactor is offline, but they still have the emergency batteries for the life support recyclers. If they disconnect the thermal regulation systems and reroute that power to the communication array, they can boost signal strength enough to reach the mining operation on Kepler 442c. But that would make most of the station uninhabitable," protested one of their teammates, a fungal collective entity named Sporok. "For most species, yes," Sarah said, joining their planning session as teams were allowed to collaborate. "But there are 3 humans on that station. Humans can survive in much wider temperature ranges than most species. If the humans move to the unregulated sections and the other species concentrate in the reduced life support areas, the humans become the communication and coordination hub, while the other species conserve resources." Kethara's mandibles clicked with excitement as she understood. "It's not a perfect solution, but it extends their survival time." James, working with another team that had converged with theirs, added another layer. "And if the mining operation can spare even one small transport craft, it doesn't need to carry full life support for the return journey. The humans can handle the temperature and atmosphere variations during transit." Zix 4471 watched in amazement as the humans casually proposed using their own biological resilience as a tool to save others. Not because they were superior, but because they were different, and they understood how to leverage their differences constructively. But the true revelation came when the simulation reached its critical phase. At hour 5, the scenario introduced a complication that wasn't part of the original design. A real emergency occurred when one of the Academy's secondary life support systems suffered an actual malfunction, filling an entire section with toxic gas and trapping 12 students in an emergency lockdown situation. The simulation became secondary as real emergency protocols activated. Academy emergency response teams mobilized, but the affected section would take hours to ventilate safely, and the trapped students had limited air supplies. This was when the humans revealed what Earth had truly taught them. While Academy officials debated protocols and waited for specialized equipment, Marcus was already moving, not with aggressive urgency, but with the purposeful calm that Zeke's 4471 had observed in all their activities. "Sarah, James," he called out. "Grab the emergency atmospheric suits from the simulation supplies. Zix, Kethara. We need to map the ventilation system access routes." "Wait," Director Veltar interrupted. "You can't possibly be suggesting that we go in and get them?" Marcus replied, already checking the seals on an emergency suit. "Why not? We know the layout. We have suits that can handle the contaminated atmosphere, and those students need help now. The safety protocols specifically forbid." "The safety protocols," Sarah said gently but firmly, "were written by beings who didn't grow up on a world where emergencies happen regularly, and waiting for perfect conditions gets people killed." This was the moment when everything clicked into place for Zeke's 4471. The humans weren't proposing to rush in because they were fearless or aggressive. They were proposing to rush in because they'd spent their entire evolutionary history dealing with situations where the safe option was often the deadly option, where hesitation in the face of imperfect information could be fatal. "Look," James explained, his voice patient but urgent. "On Earth, if someone's in immediate danger, you help them first and worry about optimal procedures second. Not because we're reckless, but because we've learned that good enough right now often beats perfect eventually." The Academy officials struggled with this concept, but the trapped students were running out of air. Finally, Director Veltar made a decision that would become a turning point in galactic emergency response doctrine. "Proceed, but with full monitoring and backup support." What followed was a textbook demonstration of human crisis management philosophy in action. The humans didn't charge heroically into the contaminated section. Instead, they moved methodically and efficiently. Using their understanding of risk assessment and adaptive planning, they established communication with the trapped students first. Assessing the situation and their condition, they mapped the safest route through the contaminated area, identifying potential complications and backup plans. They coordinated with Academy emergency teams to ensure support was ready when needed. Then they went in and brought everyone out, one by one, with the calm professionalism of people who understood that emergencies were just another type of problem to be solved. The rescue took 3 hours. All 12 trapped students were evacuated safely with no lasting harm. The humans' calm efficiency turned what could have been a tragedy into just another day's work. In the aftermath, as emergency protocols were reviewed and updated, Zeke's 4471 found herself in a quiet corridor with the 3 humans who had just redefined her understanding of their species. "You didn't save them because you're stronger or faster or more enhanced than us," she said, her tentacles rippling with the excitement of understanding. "You saved them because you're used to problems that can't be solved by waiting for optimal conditions." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Earth taught us that the world doesn't stop being dangerous just because you're not ready for it. So we learned to be ready for things we've never encountered before. That's what makes you extraordinary," Zix 4471 continued, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "Not superior genetics or enhanced physiology, but superior adaptation. You're not built to be the strongest or fastest species in the galaxy. You're built to be the most capable of becoming whatever the situation requires." Sarah smiled, the expression warm and genuine. "We're just people, Zeeks. We do what needs doing." "But that's exactly the point," Kethara said, joining the conversation. She'd been unusually quiet during the crisis, but now her excitement was palpable. "Every species in the galaxy has specialists. Warriors, scholars, artisans, engineers, but humans are generalists. You're specialists at not being specialized." James laughed, a sound that had initially seemed aggressive to galactic ears but now sounded simply joyful. "I suppose that's one way to look at it. We're professional amateurs." The phrase would become famous throughout the galactic community. Professional amateurs. Beings who had mastered the art of mastering new arts, who had weaponized learning itself. In the days that followed, Reports of the Academy incident spread throughout the galactic communication networks. The story wasn't about humans showing superior capabilities, but about humans demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to problem-solving that had profound implications for galactic civilization. Earth's Deathworld reputation began to shift. Yes, Earth was dangerous by galactic standards, but not in the way anyone had imagined. It wasn't dangerous because it bred super soldiers or enhanced beings. It was dangerous because it bred beings who thrived on challenges and turned obstacles into opportunities for growth. The Galactic Council quietly began reassessing their protocols for crisis response, incorporating human-developed concepts of adaptive planning and acceptable risk management. Academy curriculum was updated to include Earth-style problem-solving methodologies. Diplomatic procedures were revised to account for humans' tendency to propose solutions that seemed impossible until they worked. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galactic community understood the concept of a death world itself. Earth wasn't remarkable because it was trying to kill its inhabitants. Earth was remarkable because it had created inhabitants who couldn't be killed by conventional challenges. As Zeeks 4471 prepared her final report on human capabilities, she found herself focusing not on what humans could do, but on what they couldn't help but do. They couldn't help but learn from failures. They couldn't help but adapt to new situations. They couldn't help but turn problems into puzzles to be solved rather than obstacles to be avoided. Humans, she concluded, weren't the products of a death world. They were the products of a learning world, a world that had taught them the most dangerous skill in the galaxy, the ability to become whatever survival demanded. And now they were among the stars, ready to teach the rest of the galaxy what they had learned about turning the impossible into the inevitable. One problem at a time.